In this clip, I'm starting to uh, put in my value study. First, I wet the area that I'm working on, and then I add the lamp black. The reason I use lamp black is because it is staining, it's very neutral, non-granulating, and it's opaque if you put it on thick, but I'm putting it on quite thin. So it works pretty well, I think. I'm going to lose it because I'm going to put masking over it, but we'll show you that later. Okay, now I'm putting the masking on. It's kind of boring, but I'm using used to be called Shiva. It's kind of a pink color, you can see, and it'll protect the horse while I'm doing all this wild and crazy painting in the background. Okay, now I've started with my black. Now notice how I put it on the wet, and then I spray it with water in it, and it spreads. I have the board at an angle. I'm putting the masking in the background and then adding the black around it. The masking helps to protect where I want my yellow looking backlighting for the tree. So, and I just keep adding the lamp black. It really goes so much lighter when it dries. But you can see I put on some salt, and it does a really cool thing, but it doesn't stay, unfortunately. So here I am putting on my quinacridone gold and coral and burnt scarlet for the dust area. In the background I have the zoyshite green, which gives a nice texture to the background grasses. There's my shadow. I got it a little bit in the wrong position. So I took the masking off of just the dots in the background, and here I'm adding phthalo green with new gamboge and quinacridone gold. That red in there is a little bit of alizarin crimson to kind of brown up the green. And so there's the gold going in, a little more green, and just kind of working it around and making it look like a tree in the background. So then while that's dry, I'm putting in, using tool, a drafting tool, a ruling pen to put in little grasses so that they'll look lighter when I go over it with my wet and wet wash. So here I'm adding a little bit more texture, colors. I'm using quinacridone gold, quinacridone burnt scarlet, indithrone blue, zoycite green, quinacridone purple, and just kind of doing them wet and letting them blend. And then I flip it over and let that dry and work on the tree a little bit more. And here, going in with a little more greens and probably more indithrone blue here. It's going into shadow, push it back a little bit. Notice how big of a brush I use sometimes. I get a kick out of people who think you use a number 2 or a 0 brush when you do detailed work. Not always. So, and just kind of, again, working on the tree. And now I'm adding another glaze of the zoyshite green. I have some cobalt teal in there to pick up the kind of the reflected light from the sky, and adding more of the scarlet and the quinacridone gold, and the purple, a little bit of purple in there, to, you know, bring that forward. And keeping the dust, where the dust is, that's a little dust spot back there, just keeping it light. So here I am adding the reflected light to the bottom of the horse. Now notice how bright that is. Now it's not going to be that bright at the end, but it's the light reflecting from the sun and bouncing back and hitting the horse really, you want to get that in there. Otherwise, it would just be dull. So now that dried, and now I'm going over it with probably Indothrone blue. I never remember from one to the next, but and then uh, putting in more of the dark brown of the horse, the Pinto spots. And then now here I'm adding, um, I think that's where I'm adding, and for the shadows, I added more of the zoisite green for kind of a little bit texture and to kind of blend the horse, get it into the background so that the colors are blend a little bit. So in there I put Indothrone blue and quinacridone blue burnt scarlet on the horse's face, and just kind of adding the colors that are necessary here and there. Um, anyway, it uh, just working on the mane, kind of getting the hairs figured out a little bit more. It just takes, this is where the detail, I have a, looks like it, I have several smaller brushes. None of them are less than a 3. This is probably a cat's tongue, looks like. And then, oh, there's the pen. I use a dip pen for real fine lines in the mane, so the hairs. So that's kind of a boring part, isn't it? So just adding a little bit more color. Watercolor, it fades when it dries, so it will be lighter than what you expect. There is one watercolor that is not supposed to fade, but and I have some, so maybe I'll try it one of these days. So unfortunately, this is the last clip I have, because on the very last one, I forgot to, or I didn't press record. I thought I had pressed record, but I didn't. So this is it. I hope you like it.